use what that person did to them to disqualify them from relationship. I've done it. There have been a number of people that when I came into the kingdom, I had to forgive them and I had to release them for stuff they did because I used whatever they did to me to say, oh, that person was no good for me. I don't need to be around that person. I don't want to have any parts of that person. And it's wrong. It's bitterness, and it will hurt you worse than it will hurt them. Let's talk a little bit about the fruits of bitterness. Harboring bitterness will disable you to be an effective distributor of love, which ultimately causes barriers in your relationship with the Father, and I mean God. Those very barriers that we put up between ourselves and people inadvertently place barriers between us and God. 1 John 4:20 says, if someone says, I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. For the one who loves not his brother, whom he has seen, cannot love God, who he has not seen. When you place those barriers between you and other people, you are in disobedience. You are disobeying God, who has told you to love your neighbor as yourself. And that disobedience can place a wall or a barrier between you and God. Now, the thing is, God loves you, and God is forgiving. And so God, trust me, in the course of your life, you're going to have numerous opportunities to get it right. You're going to have numerous opportunities to forgive. But if you don't forgive, it can affect not only your relationship with that person, but also your relationship with God. Bitterness can also spew over into other relationships with those innocent of the transgression. I had a situation where there was this girl. I met her at Regent. I mean, she was awesome. I mean, this girl, she had the fire of the Lord in her. I mean, she was amazing. I mean, every time I was around her, I was completely encouraged. And one day we had this conversation, and I won't say her name because she's a minister at a pretty big church now. But in that conversation, she asked me, how do I feel about women in ministry? And to that point, I never thought about it before. Now, you got to understand that I'm a very contemplative person. You know, I'm, as Scott found out recently, I think a lot. And so sometimes I can't respond to you immediately if I've never thought about something. And in this situation, this girl, she asked me something I never thought about. And I said to her that you know, I don't know. I said, I don't know. I've just never considered it. And you guys can imagine how that went. I saw her one day, and okay, a couple of days had passed. I didn't even realize anything was wrong. And so I saw her someplace, and when I tried to talk to her, I was calling her name, and she was like completely ignoring me. And I was like, I know she heard me. I was like, what's going on? And this girl, and so I said, okay, maybe she didn't hear me. And then I tried to call her, She didn't answer her phone. And then I just asked the question, you know, what's going on? Have I done something that offended you? I said, please let me know. Please tell me. And I don't know how many messages I left. I don't know how many, you know, I don't know how many times I called her and tried to get in touch with her, but she would not communicate with me. And it was horrible. It made my heart sink. It made my heart sink because, you know, I liked her. She was cool. She was good people. And so later, I would say a month passed, and finally I saw her somewhere. I saw her someplace, and then And it was weird because she saw me, but I didn't see her. And when she came to me, she just says to me, how are you doing? And I said, fine. I said, how are you doing? I was really just shocked that she was even interacting with me. And then, she says to me, I said, what did I do? I said, what did I do that bothered you? I said, please tell me. And she told me that she said that you didn't accept my calling. She said that you were completely against women in ministry. So, how could two walk together unless they agree? And then I'm sitting there just dumbfounded. And then I said, I'm so sorry that you received what I said that way, because that's not what I said. I said, I never considered it. That means I've never thought about it. I've seen plenty, I've worked with women in ministry, and I've never had an issue with that, but I've never thought about the fact of, can a woman be a bishop? Or I've never really thought through that stuff. My thoughts is, God can use a donkey because he can use anybody. He can use a child. I know if he can use me, he can use anybody. And so when we had that conversation, she said, wow, I'm sorry. She said, I'm sorry that this had to happen. And I said, I am too. So our relationship from that point, we hardly ever talked. I saw her every now and then, and we were cordial when we saw each other. But then the relationship, it never ever became what it could be as a result of that one disagreement. And after some time, at that time, I didn't really understand what was going on in this girl. But then later I learned that I touched a sensitive area. Unintentionally, I touched an area where she had been wronged, where she had been attacked for being a woman in ministry, where people have come down on her for that and come against her for that. She thought that's what I was doing to her. And so as a result of it, I touched a sensitive area and she lashed out at me. So that bitterness or that hurt, that stuff that she's holding in her heart, it affected me, an innocent person who had no clue of what she's gone through. And I don't have a problem with women in ministry. Women, and I'm speaking to the women in the church, if God calls you, do what he tells you to do. Go for it. And it's the good thing about that is, out of that situation, it made me clearly define what I thought about women in ministry. But it's so sad that it was at the cost of a relationship. Okay, now we've talked a lot about a lot of the things that can contribute to bitterness. And so I want to talk about how to get free from it. But just before we go there, can I get Scott to come up to the front for a moment? And if Scott is looking like a deer caught in the headlights, he didn't know that this was going to happen. Okay, this piece of paper represents some type of transgression or some way that Scott has wronged me. And I can say this about Scott because I work for him, I work with him, I'm with him all the time. So,
more than my wife, as I explained to him
yes.
the other day.
So we have plenty of opportunities to get on each other's nerves. But if I were to hold anything that Scott has against me, anything that Scott does to me, if I were to hold it against him, I am connected. I'm still connected to that sin. I'm still connected to Scott. He's floating around in my thoughts. He's floating around in my heart. I can't be free of him because I'm holding this transgression against him. But the moment I release Scott from the transgression, then I'm free. I'm completely free. And then so is Scott. Scott so now we can have a relationship. And trust me, if I walk around holding things against Scott, that happened during the day, or if he walked around holding things against me, like he said, I'm with him more than his wife. If that's the case, we're gonna have a lot of miserable days at work. Thank you. So, bitterness is nothing you want to hold. It's nothing you want to give hold of. Okay, what I'm about to do here is I'm going to show you my summary notes, because I want you guys to see, as well as hear, the process of getting free from bitterness. Now, I would have to say, this is probably the most important part of anything that I'm saying to you here today, because there is freedom from bitterness. Now, in my experience, I think, some of the times when we were back in Bible study or in the mornings, I think I shared with you guys that I had lots of problems with bitterness. It went so much further than the problems that I had with my mom. I was bitter with my dad because he skipped out on me. And I struggled with so many things just because he wasn't there. I was bitter with my